Today we're talking about those children who keep skipping words in the line as they're trying to read a line of text, or sometimes whole lines of text as well. Generally, what you see is they can read individual words quite confidently, but when you place those words in a page, particularly a whole page like a chapter book, they really start to struggle much more. Their accuracy goes right down and are very frustrated by that. They're just stuck, really unable to engage with the text. So what's going on? A lot of children have some difficulty with the convergence of their eyes and how they track together along the page. And so what happens then is that their convergence is inaccurate. And so instead of the two images going to their visual cortex being a good match like that, there's a sort of offset. So then you get this sort of slight blurring. Now with big text, that same offset doesn't sort of matter so much, and so the big text is not as blurry, or it doesn't seem as blurry as the small text. And then with really small text, it can become so blurred that they just can't engage with it. And of course, it's very uncomfortable to be looking at a blurry image like that, which is why they keep looking away. This pattern can have a very ADHD feel to it, because it's all about what's going on in an area of the brain called the cerebellum. It's a little sort of tangerine-sized bit of cortex at the top of your neck, at the back. Now, it's small but very powerful. It's got as many neurons in it as the rest of your brain. So there's a lot going on in there, and it has two functions. One is to control your muscle movements. So you have your motor cortex, which gives the main signal, but the cerebellum does this sort of management of the muscle movement, which gives its subtlety and accuracy. And so ballet dancers, black belt karate aficionados, they've all got great cerebellums. Somebody who's got a bit of dyspraxia, they need to fire up their cerebellum a bit more. And in this case, the cerebellum is just not giving the muscles around the eyes enough control to actually get this proper convergence going on. And the other role of the cerebellum is to filter sensory input. So it's filtering the motor neuron output, but it's also filtering the sensory input. And so if the cerebellum is weak, it is not filtering signals like, the feeling of your trousers on your leg, or the little noise that's in the corridor, and all those things which we can ignore, and we need to ignore because otherwise we can't focus on what we're doing. These children tend to be distracted by those things. So they tend to be quite fidgety. They're always moving. They're constantly responding to little offset noises. And so it can feel very like ADHD, but actually ADHD is about your frontal lobe, whereas this is about the cerebellum, which is sort of almost part of your brainstem. So it's very important to understand that, because of course if you start firing the stimulants used in ADHD at these children, that's not necessarily going to be solving the problem. It will have an impact because we all react to stimulant, but it's not actually fixing the underlying problem that they're dealing with. The solution is to exercise the cerebellum. This is a key thing, is that the brain is very plastic. It responds to use. And so if you run a lot of blood and activity through the cerebellum, it strengthens. Every bit of the brain will do that. And so how do you strengthen the cerebellum? Well, you can do a lot of karate, of climbing walls, of dance, of balance boards, of physical activity. So there's an occupational therapy solution to this, which will really, really help with all of this. But also you can really get a very quick result for reading, specifically by doing a little eye tracking exercise that we've developed. So it's very simple. The child holds their arm out just comfortably in front of them and points a finger at the ceiling, and then they stare at that finger, really stare at it, so that they're converging on it. Now, some of these children will find that quite tiring, and so they should stop even after 4 or 5 seconds. Sometimes you actually see their eyes stream when they try to do this. So it's like, for the rest of us, sort of crossing our eyes is a little bit uncomfortable. For these children, it's the same feeling. So they just should do the 4 or 5 seconds and stop. But once they can get to the point of staring at their finger for, say, 12 seconds, then they start to move the finger slightly left and slightly right, just an inch or two either way, and track it with their eyes while keeping their head still. You'll find that these children like to use their neck, but we want them to use the muscles around their eyes and just track the finger across the midline of their vision, which is a complex bit of vision for neurological reasons. And so they need to just practice that for 12 seconds and stop. Now, of course, that's not going to fix it. They need to repeat that. So what we recommend is that each session does 3 repetitions. So they take a break, then do another 12, 15 seconds, take another break, and a final 12 to 15 seconds. So the whole thing is going to take you 1 to 2 minutes. A great time to do that is when you brush your teeth in the morning, when you brush your teeth in the evening, and maybe once when you go to the bathroom during the day, you're sat, nothing else to do, you can do a little bit of eye tracking. So what you want to do is 3 sessions of 3 repetitions a day. So that's 9 little sessions. If you can get a child into that habit, you'll find that within a week or 2, their convergence and tracking has really, really improved. And so that's great news. And of course, it's free. If it doesn't work, you can go to see a vision therapist. So they're called behavioral optometrists or developmental optometrists, depending on which region of the world you're in. Some of those use a vision therapy process, which is a lot more complex. But for most children, we find that just this little exercise, if done, will have a significant impact in just days. And so that's exciting. Now, there are other ways you can help just in the very short term. One is just make the text. If you're reading on a screen, you can just make the text bigger, can't you? And so that's one solution. Also, putting a finger on the page or a pen. If you've got a particular black pen, if you can just point at the words as they're being read, what that will do is it will give the eyes something clear to register on so that they then converge more accurately. That's the key function of the finger. It's not so much to show which word you're reading, it's about giving a clear marker for the eyes to work with. So those are the techniques you can use. Making the text bigger is instantaneous. So you can get progress that way. Of course, we can become lawyers and walk into a courtroom with massive documents which we've blown up to be able to read them. We need a long-term solution, and that is the exercise process. Also, a little bit of fish oil in the diet can often help quite a bit. So that's worth exploring as well. I hope this has been really interesting and helpful. If you've seen this pattern, if it has, then look at our other little secrets of reading success. They each have a pattern, each an explanation of what's going on and a solution that you can apply pretty much straight away. And if this is useful as a series of videos, please do subscribe and share this information with others.